The name giant has been injected into our normal vocabulary, but what is really a giant? Giant comes from the root Gaia, which means earthborn. Some were big, but most were only as big as an NBA player. The height was not what set the giants apart, it was the blood. This is the origin of the term blue blood. Aliens in many science fiction books and movies often have blue or green blood. Some of these earthborn creatures
worth dying for. Anybody that bleeds green blood must be invid. Why would they make themselves like us? I mean, he looked human, but he didn't react like most humans do, right, Marlene? Huh? Marlene? Huh? Look at that! No!
were known to have 6 fingers and toes. The giants are also known as Nephilim. Nephilim comes from the root Nephal, which means fallen ones. It seems that the word giant was used not only to mean big, it also means well known or famous. Some were up to 30 feet tall though. The inhabitants of Canaan were called the sons of Anak. Who was Anak? Anak was mentioned in the list of enemies of Egypt. Enoch was called Enoch. Enoch was also the king of the Rephaim. The word giant has a common root to Hebrew. It means healer. This corresponds to the passage in Enoch where the angels taught men to cut roots and use herbs as medicine. This connect the Nephilim with Asclepius and Apollo. Still to this day, healing is attached to the fallen. Similarly, the Knights Hospitallers became doctors. The use of the drugs to heighten awareness is as old as man's first run-in with the serpent. This is called pharmakia, the use of herbs to heal the body and the mind. The Rephaim lived in the Levant before the Canaanites. It seems as if the Canaanites conquered the Rephaim's territory. The Philistines in turn conquered the Canaanites. And the word the Philistines came from Egypt. The Rephaim was divided into 3 groups. The northern group called the Zanzumin of scriptures. This was a royal tribe that lived in Bashan that mixed with the tribe of Dan. The western group is Anakim, the sons of Anak, that lived in the mountains of Ephraim. The last group is the southern group, and they were called the sons of Sheth. The Philistines were from Egypt, but were Rephaim that returned home. The Rephaim face had a long, flat nose. The eyes were long and flat and slanted upward. On the corners. Egypt had wars with the Rephaim. They were called the Theban Wars. In these wars, Egypt was always the victor. The Rephaim absorbed into the Egyptian populace. The Rephaim later returned to the Levant. The people were mostly normal humans. The kings and nobles, however, mixed with fallen angels. In the book of Samuel, the Rephaim are called the dead ones. The Rephaim lived in the territory of Dan. Also in this territory is the Grotto of Pan of Philippi. The Grotto of Pan is the home of the shepherd god Pan. Sacrifices were held at a spring in the grotto or cave. The victims was thrown into the abyss. If the water was clear blood, then the sacrifice was accepted. However, if the water was bloody, it was a sign that the sacrifice was rejected. Many temples were built in the area. A city was founded called Panias. Okay. The spring empties into the Jordan River. The cave is said to be the birthplace of Pan. It is said that the spring covers a stargate. Job 26:5 supports this view. The dead things is the Rephaim, right? Water in the occult symbolizes the underworld. In order to entice Pan through the portal, these people played the pastoral music that Pan enjoyed so much. Also, the people who was in the temple, they engaged in temple prostitution and had sex with goats. In ancient times, Mount Hermon was called Mount Baal Hermon. The mountain is also called Mount Zion, not to be confused with Mount Zion. Israel was at war with Syria and Egypt. The war resulted in the UN stepping in and guarding a buffer zone that included Mount Hermon. In 2013, the base was destroyed. Either it was destroyed after something had arrived in 2012, or it was replaced. I'm not sure which one. But whatever the point is, that was the point where something was going to come down to Earth again, just like in the